Welcome back to the channel, and today I will be detailing a full 30-year dynasty rebuild guide for you all to follow in your dynasties. This is a little different than some realignment recommendations I have seen on YouTube, as I will be telling the timeline at which to realign and building some minor backstories so you as a user can be more immersed. Since I haven't seen anything like this yet, let me know down in the comments what you all think, as I would love to turn this into a broader returning series on the channel. With that being said, I hope you enjoy, and if you do, hit that subscribe button to stick around for more college football 25 content, and let's get into the video. To preface this, I want to point out that a lot of realignment depends on how teams do in recent history. Of course, the most recent wave of realignment has been a result of how big your brand is, and success has a lot to do with that. As always, this is only a guide for you to follow, so revise it to make it the most enjoyable for you. And one last thing, I was able to get these to work and scheduling not to be super messed up when I ran this through in a simulated dynasty myself. If you have any issues, I do apologize, but it may be a player-to-player issue. I would recommend having a backup file before the offseason saved to allow you to go back to it if you have any issues with the realignments. To start, we are going to leave the conferences unchanged. If we do make more videos like this, I'll switch up starting points, but for this one, we're going to keep it the same with their regular current alignment. And in this one, we're going to make it realistic as possible. So going into next year, going into 2025, we know that UMass will be making the move to the MAC. So go ahead and move them there in the second season. Next in 2026, we have the always trustworthy rumors that FSU and Clemson are leaving the ACC. And if the Big Ten and the SEC are to be trusted, they aren't. They will not be joining either of those conferences. So with the only other power conference left to house them, they'll be going to the Big 12. Nothing else needs to change at this point, but more will change in a few moments. This is where we're going to really get into depth and start moving people around. So keeping with historical norms, a major realignment takes place every 5 to 6 years. So we will be doing this at the start of the 2030s. As we grow ever closer to super conferences, this time frame is also when the Big 10 and Big 12 will be inking new media deals. So in a bid to gather as many top brands as they can, they will be taking the SEC, Big 10, and the Big 12 to 20 teams. This means a lot of conferences will be stolen from, but if we want to keep this as realistic as possible, this is the route I envision the league going to, unfortunately. With that being said, let's break down the biggest realignment we have seen so far. Moving to the SEC will be Clemson and FSU once the Super Conference Wars take place. The biggest names not in the P2 were these teams, so at this time they took their opportunity to get into the SEC. Moving in from the ACC will be Miami and Georgia Tech. They will make their return as they see the writing on the wall for the ACC. In the Big Ten, Notre Dame finally has a similar realization, realizing that this may be their last chance to gain auto bid status in a major conference. Boston College will also be joining them. Finally, the Big 12 will be the stopgap between the power conferences and the non-power conferences. They will add SMU, Louisville, Tulane, and Pitt to compete with the Big Two, along with major realignments in the P3. In an attempt to stay whole, the ACC will add 3 Carolina teams: ECU, Appalachian State, and Coastal Carolina. The UConn Huskies will finally join their rivals UMass in the MAC. All these are pretty good since the conferences are aligned regionally, or mostly regionally, or the team have had some history flirting with or being in certain conferences, so I could foresee this in the next half decade or so. After inking major media deals for the major 3 super conferences for the last realignment and the 5 auto bid system staying, some university chairmen grew tired of being in the middle or the back of the pack to these premier brands. If one thing has been true in college football history is that money runs the league, but egos run the universities. Since they will not foreseeably see a playoff bid, many chairmen get together and devise a plan to create a new power structure in the college landscape. What comes of this is the revival of the Pac-12 and the resurgence of the ACC, who has been able to stay afloat enough to keep a higher standard than other conferences. Rejoining the pack will be Stanford, Cal, UCLA, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State. With USC, Washington, and Oregon not wanting to leave the Big Ten, the league turns to the Mountain West to poach Boise State and UNLV. Along with this, the BYU joins to get the 12 teams they need. With some willing and dealing, the ACC is able to convince former brands of Maryland, Rutgers, Georgia Tech, and Boston College to return to get them to back to somewhat whole and a competitive brand. In the late 2030s, the college football playoff has gained so much support and viewership that it has rivaled conference TV deals in terms of revenue split. This will have significant impact on the future landscape of college football. So in 2038, only 2 seasons after the last realignment, some conference commissioners see that the G5 will never have a seat at the table in the current format. So the three largest conferences, the Sun Belt, American, and the Mid-American Conference, or the MAC, all decide independently to seek and become a competitor with the ACC and Pac-12 to try and compete for the last auto bid in the playoffs. After months and months of infighting, the American was able to gain a leg up by offering steep revenue sharing percentages to 5 teams: UCF, Miami, Arkansas, Louisville, and Virginia Tech. Missouri also sees an opportunity in the Big 12 while it gets a little bit weaker to solidify some dominance after falling short repeatedly in the SEC. Along with this, Temple moves to the MAC and Tulsa moves to this Conference USA. After 6 years of relative calm, Penn State notifies the Big Ten it will leave the league to join the American Conference. They have had a history of always doing their own thing, and they have had spotty success in the Big Ten, but believe that joining a league with the Power Conference title, but may not have as strong a competition, they can have consistent success and consistent playoff appearances. Unbeknownst to most people involved, the American Conference has realigned their membership rights and will be removing the following teams from the league: Army, Navy, North Texas, and UTSA. They did this believing this will open up spots to other suitors with bigger brands. And the risk was right, as the very same week of this announcement, Tulane, Pitt, and West Virginia call from the Big 12 to join. The teams taking the fall join these conferences on screen. Pause here so you can copy these down to your realignment. In 2044, the US had approved a major infrastructure bill to finally update and add thousands of miles of high-speed rail. While full country integration is on the horizon, the late 2040s was a time of regional networks moving people across regions such as the Southeast, Northeast, Midwest, and the Western US. With this finally seeing increased usage in 2047, airlines saw a massive drop in passengers and prices skyrocketed. This significantly affected portions of the college football world, especially east to west travel, as most teams still flew commercial and those who didn't still saw benefits of train travel. With this shaking up the travel culture in the US, the 2049 offseason had a ton of realignment to get more local to take advantages of this benefit. To save time, I'm going to post most of the realignment on screen, but I will speak on a few of the more impactful changes. So pause now to copy those changes. With those out of the way, we also see Washington return to the Pac-12, but Oregon and USC, both still major programs with large endowments or backing, stay in the more prestigious Big Ten. Army and Navy, the last two independents, return to a league, this time to the Sun Belt to ensure limited air travel. Being the only team from Texas in the American, Rice leaves and joins the Big 12. And with that, that brings us to the end of the guide. Let me know in the comments what you all liked from the video or anything that you may change to make it better viewing experience for you all. I appreciate you all tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed. If this video sees some good numbers, I will start work on the second, less realistic realignment guide for you all. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.